audience that are about empowering the underserved. This year, Charlamagne and I talked about something different and equally special. At a time where some folks are suggesting that you are on your own, we say that's fine. Just show us the rules. It's the James Brown version of affirmative action. Open the door, I'll get it myself. So we start thinking about what have we built? What's sustainable? Not just celebrity images, not just rocking the mic, owning it. So we talked about bringing together a historic session of the biggest builders in media who happen to be Black in the world.
What was the moment you realized I can't just be in media, you gotta own something?
I think that moment really came from me. I was being invited to speak at different places and I was sharing stories and I think I was adding to other people's vision. But there came this moment where I realized the people who was resonating with my social media content weren't showing up in those spaces. And so for me, I wanted to create a space where they could receive information, entertainment, and spiritual edification in spaces that resonated with them culturally. And so what evolved for me was my response to creating that space, and I just couldn't have imagined how necessary that space was.
Amen. How are you, my brother? What was the moment you realized you can't just be in media? When I got fired. That would be a good place to start. I didn't think it was the best thing that ever happened to me at that time in 2009. But in the aftermath of all of it, as time went on, I later realized it was the best thing that happened to me to be told that you're no longer wanted. To go from having 4 jobs to 0 in a nanosecond, and to not have anyone, and I mean anyone, interested in you. You just found yourself feeling incredibly helpless. And I was, I had, my daughter had just been born like 8 months earlier. And I'm looking at it as a guy that grew up poor in the streets of Hollis, Queens, wondering if I was going to be able to feed my daughter. I'm old-fashioned in that regard. You take care of your man, you take care of your family. And for me to have that jeopardy, and so ultimately when I scratched and clawed and I got my way somewhat back, looking at the media landscape and how print media was fading. It's not newspaper, it's not print per se, but newspaper. The newspaper industry was fading into the twilight. The advent of social media was coming into play. .coms, podcasts, YouTube was on its way, etc. You saw all of this unfolding, and you started saying to yourself, okay, what is it that you can do about it? And the disadvantage that I was at, and a lot of people don't realize that if you're an artist, if you're an athlete, etc., one of the major advantages that you have that a lot of people don't realize is that when you come on board in the media industry, you're usually an independent contractor. Because I was a newspaper reporter, I was an employee. So I didn't have rights. Like literally, so much noise is made about the contract that I just agreed to with ESPN. And what everybody misses is that, do you understand, until this past May, to sit up on this stage, I would have had to get ESPN's permission to do something because I was their employee. That's not the case anymore. Proud to work for them. I'm not throwing any shade at the industry, whether it's NBC, CBS, anything. You know this better than most, Byron. The fact is that you don't have that latitude. And so because of that, when I agreed to my contract with ESPN, the money was agreed to 8-9 months earlier. The fight was over the right, the freedom to do the things that I wanted to do. I'm 58 years old, and it just happened this past week.
I'm 64, you're a young man. You're a young man.
But I'm gonna ask you a question.
Sure.
We only got 40 minutes.
Okay.
Now, you've been fighting for ownership your whole career, right? Like, what's the biggest game you've learned about the system? How it actually works?
Never stop. Next question. You know what? You know, it's really been, it's really been about ownership, and then the whole time, like you just said, ownership. That's it. You know, we're unique. We're the commodity, and make sure you're direct with the consumer. I think what's going to happen. My prediction is now, because of the technology and the way it's available to us, you will see more billionaires than ever before. Because, yeah, absolutely. Because you have something that I didn't have when I started. You have global distribution. You're direct to the consumer.
Yes.
So if you really have it, and you really have something that connects with people, that will be a commodity that will generate billions for you in terms of value. And in conclusion, to keep it short, I was recently reading an article. They were talking about all the people Disney laid off, Warner Brothers laid off, this and that, and just going down the list of all the thousands of people who've been laid off. And the last thing they said, and Mr. Beast just opened an amusement park in Saudi Arabia. That's you. You're unique. Only one person on the planet has your fingerprint. What you bring is very special. Be yourself. Bring it, and know that you have something that I spend more than 80-90% of my life chasing. Global distribution. It's your birthright. So go for it.
Where is the tipping point where talent becomes ownership? Where is Stephen A. saying, like, it just happened?
I would say you can make that decision right now. That decision you make that now. Just say, I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to produce my content. You have these people are shooting movies on iPhones. You make your content and you upload. I mean, what's the kid? Drewski? Yeah, it's not. Guys, come on. Really. They've proven the model is be yourself, do what you do, don't talk about it, and upload it to the world. And let the world show up in your bank account. I'm telling you, it's the natural greatest resource of the planet. Okay? It used to be oil. It is now content. The most valuable commodity on the planet. It's worth billions and billions of dollars as we move to electric cars. Put it up.
You want to go first? One of the things that I say often is that I'm brilliant because I know I'm not. I listen to those who are, and I learn from them. So when you ask the question about a tipping point, it comes first with the self-awareness of who you are, where you want to be, and what it's going to take to get there. Secondly, do you have the courage to bet on yourself? Because the world is telling you it's not safe, and the chances of you losing are there. So then it's about, okay, I'm brave enough. Thirdly, knowledge and wisdom emanates from somebody else because you ain't reinventing the wheel. Somebody else knows more. I'm sitting on stage next to Byron Allen. This is not the first time I've been in the presence of Byron Allen. We've had several meetings together. We've talked quite often. John O'Brien. Well, what this man has accomplished, I can't tell you how many times we've been on the phone and the level of capture that he has provided me. I touch on politics and stuff like that. Well, I know politicians. I was establish myself in the world of sports. Well, I know sports figures. I'm interested in the world of business, so I talk to business folks.
Need a prayer line.
See what I'm saying? That, you know, when you talk about the media, how many times do you and I talk? It's not about me knowing everything. It's about me being mindful of what I don't know. Understanding that whether it's you, John O'Brien, or anybody else, the ability to edify oneself doesn't start and stop with you. It always involves contributions from others. And when you know that and you embrace that and you accept that, your chances of failure diminishes drastically because visionaries are edifying you and blessing you with their brilliance. And somehow, some way, every little crevice that you might miss if you sit on your own, you won't miss it because somebody is going to give you a nugget of wisdom that you can utilize.
Creators and entrepreneurs watching, what's the real blueprint for going from building a brand to building a company?
You know, I'm going to be transparent. When I first started sharing my story, I thought I was just sharing my story. And it wasn't until I saw that other people were resonating with that story that I felt a sense of responsibility to really make sure that I was creating a construct, a platform where other people were free enough to tell their stories and felt safe enough to tell their stories. And I think it was 1827, the first form of Black media, the Freedom Journal, was created, and it was created as the tagline was, we wish to plead our own cause, for far too long others have told our story. For me, it wasn't necessarily about building a company, I had a cause. And I felt like that cause was worthy of a construct that would allow for it to be platformed with integrity and authenticity. When you talk about moving from talent into ownership, I think one of the things that I learned very quickly in telling my story is that other people were willing to use it for their own agendas. And if I wasn't willing to take ownership of my story, it would fit within someone else's narrative of what it means to be a Black woman, what it means to be a woman of faith. And if I don't own my story, I allow someone else to project something that's not true. So for me, ownership is not necessarily about building this huge dynamic company, though I recognize that there's opportunity for that. For me, ownership is about maintaining the integrity of who I am and those who are called to me. And as long as I'm in the driver's seat, I can do that.
If you have the talent, you already have the ownership.
Right?
The question is, did you sign it over?
Yeah.
And now with the technology, you don't have to sign it over anymore.
Well, there's also one other element I'd like to add. Yes, one of it is, did you sign it over? The other was, did you succumb to the temptations of numbers, algorithms, what others try to tell you work for you because you decided that you wanted to be defined by numbers instead of by your own principles and morals. The world that we live in right now, do you have any idea how easy it would be for you, me, you, anybody, to accumulate numbers if we were willing to compromise our integrity and just put out whatever the audience was gravitating to just to be a slave and imprisoned by numbers and dollar signs? The real test comes from you saying, yeah, I can get an additional 1 million subscribers. I can get an additional 5 million subscribers, but I ain't doing that. And because of that, if this is the sacrifice that I have to make and I got to scratch and claw and crawl instead of leap, then that is what I will do to make sure I maintain my principles.
Now I have an excuse to tell everybody why I have 10,000 followers. That's great.
What is your why? Like, what is the reason you're doing what it is you're doing? We're all up here talking about brands and being talent, but how important is the why?
Why matters. I love being a voice that has to be reckoned with. That somehow, some way that you know if there's a pertinent subject that's permeating through our society that people are talking about and the masses are paying rapt attention to, you're gonna have to deal with me because of the platform that I have available to me. Yeah, I own my own production company and my YouTube channel and stuff like that, but I also work, I have a job at ESPN. That's an incredibly huge platform that I've been blessed to be able to springboard my career off of. I gotta give credit where credit is due. I can't ignore the impact, the benefit that I have for them. And in my perfect world, as long as I'm associated with sports, why would I not want to be associated with the Worldwide Leader? But I also have something in SiriusXM because they have a huge platform themselves. So having both of that available to me on top of what I own makes me pretty damn lethal. And I like being
That's important too.
that's what the report says.
How important is the why?
For me, it's something that is necessary if I want to build something that lives beyond me. And my why has a lot to do with us having two polarized perspectives of what it means to be Black. We've got our Black pain that is often highlighted in media, and then we have this necessity for Black excellence. And what I have found in working with people is that the truth is really somewhere in the middle, that we're navigating Black pain and Black excellence. And there are few places that allow us the complexity of the human experience. And no one knows that better than us. And so my reality is, my cause rather, is to create spaces where that complexity can live. Where you can be a person who's on a faith journey, but also questioning God. Where you can be into fitness, but also want to make collard greens and have pot liquor. And I think to have a space where the complexity of the Black human experience is highlighted is so important, especially when we are sat within a culture where we've been dehumanized. And if we don't make ourselves human, if we don't allow those spaces, then we may not get them. And then I want to say, as it relates to future-proofing Black media, that one of the things that I think that we have an opportunity to do culturally is to really deconstruct this idea of children are seen and not heard. Because the future of Black media will require us to listen to what they're drawn to, what are their causes, what are their issues, what are their concerns. How do we meet them where we are, even if we don't necessarily like it? Like, we may not like Glorilla, you know? We may not want to listen to what they're listening to. We may think it's ridiculous, but that may be the only way we're able to hide vegetables and give them what they need. And so I think for future-proofing Black media, that we have to be willing to lean in and listen so that we understand the causes of the next generation and that we can steer them with wisdom, because we do see generations slipping through the cracks. And if we continue to say, you know what, we'll worry about them when it's not our time, then we'll miss out on what legacy can really look like.
For me, it's really always been about controlling the narrative. I've always felt like the most powerful person is, the person who runs this country or that country. It's the person who controls media. Because if you control media, you control what people read, what they hear, what they think, and ultimately how they behave.
That's why the person who controls the media controls the minds of the masses.
You control the world. Because that's what's guiding you, leading you. And I've always wanted to have a seat at the table and control the narrative, especially as it relates to Black people, which is why I always use the platform to amplify Black excellence, which is why I do the Griot Awards to celebrate African American excellence. It was not lost on me that the greatest athletes, happen to be Black. But you have these HBCUs, 107 of them, and been around 160, 170 years, but nobody had aggregated, curated, and invested millions and millions of dollars to produce and distribute Black sports, HBCU sports. So because I was able to build this company, I was able to go and aggregate approximately 4,200 HBCU sporting events and put them on broadcast television stations. Put them on Amazon Prime and amplify what's going on in these schools. We have to have people in our community who can curate, aggregate, amplify, produce, and globally distribute who we are and always shine a light on our Black excellence. For me, in Detroit, when my mother and my grandmother put me in the car and said, let's go look and see where all the rich white people live. And when we drove around, we said, that's where the Ford family lives, and the Chrysler family lives, and all of a sudden they said, and that's where Barry Gordy lives. Yes. And when I saw that, I said, Barry Gordy lives there? They go, yeah, he's got a bowling alley and an indoor swimming pool. I go, over here with these rich white people? I might not be going to the factory. Because that's that image that you need, that beacon of light that draws you. And we have to be there for our children, because when they see us and they know they can be us, and they go for it.
You are controlling narratives, right? Like, nowadays, I feel like algorithms decide what people see. How do Black people protect narratives when the platforms aren't ours?
Well, you know what? I mean, I think that we know the truth. We're authentic. We're going to cut through it. We know what's going to happen. We have that voice. You know, we are market leaders. We're global leaders. Our culture is the culture that is exported the most. It is. Whether you look at an example, whether it's in sports, whether it's in music, or whether it's in fashion, we're the truth. People, yeah, we're the truth. And you just have to be comfortable with that. You have to accept that, because the system is built to say you're not. And the system's constantly telling you you're not. And you have to just understand you are. You are it.
Well, you asked that question about narrative. As somebody that's on the head damn near 7 days a week, I gotta say this. Sometimes controlling the narrative is not being addicted to paying attention to it.
Yes.
So I am lied on every day. And I mean, they make up some stuff about me. It's unbelievable, right?
So you're not running for president?
I won't say that. But in all seriousness, when I see something like that, yeah, you're absolutely right. Sometimes you gotta speak up. But once you speak up and you put it out there, you gotta be good.
Yeah.
You can't be addicted to always answering to everybody else's narrative about you, because most of the time, their narrative is inauthentic. If you're not looking for numbers, I'm not looking for numbers. We want them, but not at the price of us. They need the numbers. They're prisoners to the algorithm. They're prisoners to the revenue that it could potentially generate. So they don't mind creating conversation, no matter what kind of detrimental negative effect it may have on you, because it's to their financial benefit. And you're caught up in it to a point where over and over and over again, you might feel the need to respond. I might respond every now and then. I ignore 99% of the stuff that is said about me.
I don't believe that.
It's the total truth. People look at me and they see a response. What they're not seeing is the inordinate amount of things that are said and what I choose to respond to. So you might see a response 5 days a week, but you're ignoring the 50,000 comments that were made. I answered about 5. I didn't answer 50,000. I'm not thinking about that, because I know what the agenda is. And in the end, I might respond to this because it's to my benefit to do so. 99% of the time, it's to my benefit to ignore you, tell you go kick rocks, you live your life. And that's how you got to be. If you're addicted to constantly answering the shrapnel of criticism, vitriol, skepticism that's thrown in your direction, you're already lost. You're already lost.
So how do you control it? Because you don't have the platform where you can just go out there and go off, well, if you want to, because everything that you do is
I could.
you could. So, when you out there on Sundays, what you do is bigger than you. So how do you handle it?
You know, I'm a delicate flower. I don't like when people talk negatively about me. But I also realize that this is part of it. I try to make sure that I'm protecting my authenticity in the midst of it all. I think one of the most dangerous things that can happen to us as people of influence is that we begin to defend ourselves through our work. Work that started off as pure, work that had a certain cause, now becomes the platform we use to whoop the people who said something about us. And I think it takes away from those who were truly meant to be drawn to our calling. And so for me, I have to reclaim my identity from other people's narratives because sometimes it is difficult, good or bad, to not fall into this idea of I am whoever people say that I am. I am who God says I am. These stars, these times, I am what my work has produced. I know who I am. And if you can hang on to who you are while building something that's bigger than you, you'll never have to worry about someone taking it from you because you held on to who you were in the process. And so when narratives are spinning and things are being said, I know who I am at the end of the day. And sometimes I have to log off because I do want to say something. I do. I want to say many things, many times. You know, God's given me this incredible gift of communication, and I can use it to tear down, or I can use it to build people up. And I have to recognize that I have a weapon that's greater than what they have, and I'm going to use it with wisdom.
You have to manage your resources.
Yes.
You have to manage your energy. You know, when I started my company, I had salespeople, and it was interesting because I would always drill down with my salespeople. And I would say, okay, you went to this television station, you went to this TV station, what they say, I want to hear everything they have to say. And I had a number of salespeople who said to me, white salespeople, boss, they said to me, they would never do business with me as long as I work for that end.
Can I say it or Bishop is Can I say the word?
Sure, go for it.
Nigga.
Yes. Is there another end?
No, I just want to make sure.
It wasn't nigga, it was nigger. And I had to train my salespeople, white salespeople, how to deal with racism. Because they didn't know how to do it. And so I said, look, man, I said, let me tell you my attitude. You're good, but what you're saying to me, I knew that was going to be said to me. I know who I am and where I am. So what you now have to do is not let that distract you. I'm not going to accept it as an excuse because I have a sign by the elevator that says there isn't a bank in the world where I can deposit excuses, so I don't accept it. When you get on the elevator, it's hanging there. I need you to go back and say this, that, and come up with reasons why he needs to do business with us. It's just a distraction, and you have to have the discipline not to get caught up in the ropes. That is so much what they do to us as black people. Hit you with nigger, hit you with this, hit you with that. Whatever they hit you with, that's a distraction. You don't get caught up in the ropes, and you stay in the sit in the ring and knock them out.
How do you let your emotions not get in the way when you know somebody has said something like that about you, but you still choose to do business?
Well, isn't that at the end of the day, I'm gonna do business. I'm not gonna be. And there are a lot of people who don't do business with us because of our skin color. They just don't. I appreciate the ones who say it. At least I know who you are. I like you, man, because you actually said it. Now you know what? It's the ones who don't say it. But it can't be the distraction. You have to move forward, and you can't get caught up because they want you to use your energy for that. My white counterparts don't have to use their energy for that. And that puts them at an advantage because they're not dealing with that.
So we just go sit in a room like this, and nothing you said was false, because being black, living in America, that is inevitable. That don't faze me. I see that coming from a mile away. I expect it, I anticipate it, and I'm built to fend it off. And to keep on marching forward. What about the black on black stuff? We just gonna You know, ain't no white person called me a sellout. Ain't no white person called me a cool. We want to talk about HBCUs? Google me, look up my record with HBCUs and what I've done to help HBCUs. That's been ignored because I have a take that for some reason a few black people want to sit and act like the majority of black people feel this way, and all of a sudden they believe it empowers them to define blackness for us. Like who told you you qualify? If I looked at you, you'll get me your track record. If I Googled you, what would I find out about you? I'm just saying this kind of stuff. As you're watching for, you talk about business. Okay? I listen to you all the time. You know that. I listen to you all the time. You know that, and a host of others. I think I've proven I'm about business. Okay? The point is, as you march forward and you're about doing business, you can simply be about the business of educating us about what works and what doesn't. You right? That's wise. I don't blame you for feeling that way, but that ain't gonna work. And because you say that publicly, and my God, is this man guilty of this? Because this brother goes on the air all the time, all the week, looking out for us, educating us, watching our back, telling us what minefields are out there, and he gets crucified. I get crucified. Other people get crucified. When all we doing is saying, we've kind of been lucky enough to make it this far. So we've maneuvered our way through certain minefields that you might not know about, or you might miss, or you might step on and implode because of it. And we looking out, we ain't selling out, we looking out. But we're treated differently. And you can't be in a room like this and forget that subject, because I can make an argument that while racism is very prevalent, still exists, don't let anybody tell you otherwise. It doesn't affect us the way our own affects us. When our own are willing to tear us down, that's what I'm talking about. For the record, I've only said wonderful things about Stephen A. Smith. Watch him 7 days a week. I would just say that was very real. That wasn't AI, right? But AI is here. Okay? Good or bad, AI is here. What's the opportunity and what's the danger for black storytellers? But I be seeing sometimes they have you walk across the stage and I'm like, that's not bad.
No, I think that AI is an opportunity to level the playing field in ways that perhaps opportunity and education hasn't afforded Black creators or entrepreneurs to be equipped. I think the dangers are obvious. I think not just the dangers with the ethics behind how the information is sourced, but I think the environmental dangers, which we aren't really unpacking to the full extent as we should. I think that it has to be used with wisdom and intention, but I do think that we also want to preserve what only a human can really give language to. And I think I'm using it as a think partner and not as a tool to skip some of the lessons that you only learn through experience is going to be really important. I think we want to use it as a tool and not our primary source of building. But I mean, I think you would have to be blind to not see where the obvious pitfalls are. But I do think that we are living in an age of opportunity. And I think to completely ignore it, which we have a tendency to do, especially if you've grown up in a more traditional Black space, the internet is the devil, shopping online is the devil. I'm a fool with that, and then we end up being left behind. And so I think to ignore it completely is a mistake, but I think to understand how can it best be utilized to serve what it is I'm building is really important, so that we're not overusing, over-consuming in a way that's going to be detrimental and harmful long term.
What you think, Steve?
She's absolutely right. And I think that, listen, AI is not going away. It's here to stay. And there are lives that are going to be ravaged, that's going to suffer because of it, because you're going to see millions of people losing jobs. Millions. And you have to prepare yourself for that. So for me, paying attention to the industry that I'm in, seeing where the opportunities lie, where the opportunities are evaporating before our very eyes, paying attention to that is one way. Paying attention to the importance of ownership and knowing how to monetize your brand, not just now, but moving forward. Having the foresight, just like I did when I was in the newspaper industry, and I knew to get away from that because the newspaper industry was going to be a dying breed because of the dot-com era and beyond. You got to see the forest from the trees. Evolution is a part of life. It's changed. My parents used to tell me they never thought the world was going to be the way that it was in the 90s and it turned, 2000 and beyond, the way that it was in the 70s, the 60s, the 50s. But lo and behold, change came and people had to adopt. And the world is merciless in that regard. And so to know that, you attach yourself to the folks and to the industries where the knowledge resides. And you make sure to steal and peel as much knowledge as you can and turn it around and give it back to those who may need it most. And in the process of doing so, you hope and pray that a minimal amount of folks will suffer because of it, as opposed to an inordinate amount of folks. That's all you can do.
What do you think, Mr. Allen?
You know, about 8 years ago when I bought the Weather Channel, I bought it from two private equity firms, NBC and Universal, and they had wanted nothing to do with the Weather Channel. They basically threw the keys at me and burnt rubber out of the parking lot because they thought it was going to slide down. But they also said something to me. They said, "Hey, by the way, in addition to the Weather Channel, you own something called Local Now. And it uses artificial intelligence to curate, aggregate, and stream super hyper local news, weather, sports, and traffic, geofence to the person's zip code." And they said, "But you're going to probably want to shut it down." Because I went, "Whoa, that's amazing. What is artificial intelligence?" It was the first time I'd ever heard of artificial intelligence. And they laid it out to me. They explained the whole thing. And they said, "You're going to probably want to shut it down." And I said, "Why would I want to shut that down?" They said, "Because it loses over 25 million a year." And I said, "You know what?" I said, "That's the most brilliant thing I've ever heard, what you just described. We don't have the technology to do it." So I proceeded to invest $150 million over the next 4 years to build it out. And it's turned out to be one of my best investments. Because now it's streaming and it's free and people go there and it's advertising and right down to your zip code, it can tell you what's going on with the air quality. And I just said, this is something that's a breakthrough. So, like everything else in life, you have to have balance, you have to measure it, you have to make sure that it's not being used in evil ways. And every invention that we have, there's always some bad actors out there who use it in evil ways. But I think it helps to level the playing field. And once again, a lot of folks, especially people of color, will have an opportunity to create enormous wealth for ourselves and in our communities using artificial intelligence. So we have to get ahead of it, stay on top of it. And I'm glad I made the decision 8 years ago not to run from it. And I said, I'm going to learn from this and I'm going to use it throughout my entire company and across my platform. So I'm embracing artificial intelligence. I love it. We as a community, we have to invest more in our kids to make sure they master STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That is everything. We can't invest enough to make sure that our kids have mastered STEM because that's what it's going to be about. Artificial intelligence, you're right, Sarah's right, it's here. We have to own it. We have to own it. And you have to make that decision to own it and not walk away from it, look away from it, don't be afraid of it. Stand up and say, "Baby, you belong with me."
I totally agree, and if I can just add that relates to making sure that we are equipping our children, we have to be willing to be inconvenienced to equip them. Because a lot of times when we're raising children, if it's not on our schedule, if we have to go out of our way, if it's not easy, we do not expose them to the tools and resources that are going to help them as they grow and develop. And I think that it's a luxury that many of us have been afforded if we've been able to move up economically. But I do want to challenge our perspective on what it means to have children beyond just making sure they're fed and that they're in their rooms, is that we have to expose them. We are being outpaced in education globally, not just domestically. When we talk about artificial intelligence, I want to make sure that we're thinking globally about the opportunities that exist. We may be preparing our children for a future that is not in America. We may be preparing them to go back to the continent and to introduce infrastructure on the continent and so if we can get beyond our neighborhoods, beyond our communities, and recognize that we are raising global citizens, as much as we can pour and develop into them so that when they do move or when they do need to get out of here, they feel like they are equipped enough to build something outside of what's taking place in America.
Whoever dominates STEM will dominate the world. That needs to be our number one focus. Intellectual capital that is dominating STEM. Then you're sitting there going, give me more artificial intelligence. Because now it's your game and not theirs.
Everything y'all saying is true, but how do you navigate the dangers of it? Because it can impact brains, right? Like when you talk about these N-words that we attack, some of them not even real. Those are like some, fat kid in India, playing around on a computer. Or, they might start putting out, sermons of you, Pastor Roberts. That's not even you. That's your voice, but it's not what you say. So how do you navigate those dangers? Knowing those type of campaigns exist.
I don't know where this is headed, and I don't know how wild these narratives can grow with AI, but what I will say is that I am fortunate in that having my father, who has gone ahead of me, helps me to see what is survival. And what I understand that some may not understand is that at the end of the day, longevity and consistency is going to make the difference. If you can survive this, the news cycle is so fast. They'll be talking about something for 48 hours on thread, and then the next thing they won't even remember that they were dragging and that somebody was canceled. If you can manage to stay consistent and to have longevity, I think that time will tell the tale. I've seen Stephen A. Smith with his daughter. She is eating you up, by the way. I like her a lot. But you're helping her to understand what it feels like to be a public figure, what you're up against, what you have to navigate. What I think we need more than anything as it relates to future-proofing are people who are willing to show us your scars, to tell us your stories, so that we know what's normal and what's not. When people if they start talking about your daughter on you'll be able to tell her, baby, that's normal and you can survive it. And so I do think that we've seen, our culture has seen shifts and changes that have been detrimental to us, that have threatened to put us in harm, and we have survived. Whatever happens with AI, there have to be at least a few of us who say, no matter what, we can survive this. I will make sure my community is not left behind. I will make sure my family is taken care of. We have to have a conviction about that, or we will allow the times to move us off of our square at a time where we need to be building. We can survive this, no matter what comes. We have to believe that.
Somebody was asking me backstage about, the successes and all of this other stuff. And I'm like, it's about the process. That's what you're talking about. It don't matter what you achieve today if you're going to fall apart tomorrow because you ain't prepared to march on. The point is, it's about the marathon. It's not about the sprint. It's about the process, not about what it culminates into. Because there's always something more. And particularly on the subject of entrepreneurship and just owning a business and being about that, owning your own brand, et cetera, et cetera. I've had somebody tell me this a couple of weeks ago. And they said to me, the hardest part about owning a business is that you never feel quote-unquote successful. It doesn't stop. It's going to the next. It's like, not literally. Of course, you know what all the success you've accomplished, or success you've accomplished. Yeah, I've achieved something. Fine, that's good. But you didn't do it for that. There was a higher purpose. And that purpose, you are still in constant pursuit of. And there's always more and more and more layers to it. Seeing your wonderful father in attendance, it's always more. I watched the sermon that he gave, talking about you don't stop, you keep on going. Because why? There's always the temptation to stop. To temptation to say, I'm finished, or I've had enough, I don't have any more to give. But no, You live it, you breathe it, you got energy, you got blood sifting through your veins, you march forward, you keep on going.
Now, one last question for each of y'all. I'm gonna start with you, Mr. Allen. And if you could guarantee one major shift in the media world for the next generation of Black creators, what would it be?
I would guarantee that you have unlimited possibilities. You have a blank canvas. You can make your own masterpiece. You literally have the world at your fingertips. And if you are authentic and honest and you share yourself, you'll see. Don't ever think about the money. Don't worry about the money. It will follow. You just now need to be yourself and get out there. Don't overanalyze it. Don't overthink it. Don't say you need this. You have everything you need and then some. You are well positioned to succeed, far greater than anybody I've ever seen. I'm watching folks just rise like you've never, like when I look at my show, Comics Unleashed, I'm watching comics who are unknown. And they go and they do something really funny, they go viral. And the next thing you know, they're playing theaters, they're playing arenas, they're playing stadiums. And that is the internet, and that is being authentic and talented. So, I had an unknown comic on my show 15 years ago. Guy made $100 million on the show. Okay? Most people, Nate Ligotti, very talented guy. Yeah, very talented. But he didn't do that through the traditional platforms and TV. He basically did it through being talented and internet. So you have unlimited potential. Unlimited. You are good as it gets.
If you could guarantee one major shift in the media world for the next generation of Black creators, what would it be?
I think you're going to see an inordinate amount of Black folks who have mastered globalizing their brand. You don't see people traveling over to Dubai for nothing, to Abu Dhabi for nothing. They ain't just going to party. They're going over there because they learned that there's business that's happening across this globe, as you alluded to, and they want a piece of that action. That, combined with the avenues that YouTube has created, there's an inordinate amount of opportunities that are available to you. I have officials in the Middle East on speed dial because they saw me on YouTube. I didn't know who they were. Asking others to get me over there to come visit them. I just went to Abu Dhabi last year. I've never been there in my life. But it was at the request of somebody that asked me to come over there because they saw me on YouTube. If you have people, you show us as a people, we have incredible intestinal resolve, incredible fortitude. With all that we've dealt with in this world and the things that we've overcome, to still be able to stand tall and achieve what we have achieved. You can't stop us. You can try, but collectively, we're unstoppable. And the point is, when you have an avenue to communicate on a global scale, that opens the floodgates not just for STEM, but for creativity across all platforms. And we know that when you give us an opportunity to showcase our talents without limiting or confining us to a box, we are simply unstoppable.
Jake Roberts, I'm asking you the same question. If you could guarantee one major shift in the media world for the next generation of Black creators, what would it be?
I would hope that Black creators would not underestimate the power of a niche audience. I think so often we want the big, flashy, those moments where we're in stadiums and we think, well, if it's just a few thousand people or it's just a few 100,000 people, it'll never have the great impact of those who have millions. But Scripture said, if you're faithful over a few things, I'll make you rule. If we can learn to master serving our niche audiences, it is a breeding ground for greatness. That a lot of things that need to be developed in us, a lot of the lessons we need to learn, we don't want to learn them in those stadiums. We want to learn them in rooms that may seem too small, that may seem like they don't matter at all, but it's developing us even when it's not necessarily developing the platform. And so I think that we have a journey ahead of us, and it's going to be an exciting journey, and it's going to be a powerful one. But if we're going to be steady enough to really outlive the times and outlive the changes of the world, it's going to happen because of what we do in those small rooms, not necessarily the big rooms.
Make some noise.